Hey there, friends. It's Jen Pitta with By the Shore Stamping. Welcome into another edition of Teach Me Tuesday. Today I wanted to show you how to do watercolor wash. This is one of my favorite techniques because I am actually not good at watercoloring. I don't have the shading and all that kind of stuff down, so I struggle a little bit with it, but I have been playing with it a little bit more. However, today's technique is really super simple, and I think anyone could really do it. So let's go ahead and get started. It's going to be a fairly quick video, I think, today because it's a pretty easy technique. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, let me put this down so you can see what I'm working on. Hopefully, there we go. Hopefully you can see that well. So let's start first with the simplest technique of this. So I'm just using my Stamping Right markers, which are honestly some of the best markers ever. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the paintbrush end because we have a paintbrush end and we have a fine tip journaling / coloring end. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take the paintbrush end and I'm going to just literally color over my watercolor paper. And actually this marker is getting a little dry, so I'll go over it a couple times. And I'm going to take my garden green marker and I'm just going to go ahead and go over that, or just under it I should say, and do that. So that was not very hard at all, right? And I will take my little Stampin' Mister. I just filled it with water. Now, I'm on our watercolor paper because this we're going to spritz, so therefore we need it to be able to absorb the water without pilling or wrinkling. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and spritz it. I'm going to spritz from pretty far above because I don't want it to get too saturated. That's what I did wrong with my sample one, and I'll show you that in a second. Not that it's wrong because I could still play with it, but I'm just going to lightly spritz that. And you'll see it's going to start to bleed a little bit. I don't know if you can actually see that, but you can kind of see the edges will start bleeding just a tiny bit. It's not too wet right now, so I'm going to add a little bit more. It's always better to go light and add more than it is to go too heavy and not be able to take it back. So I'm going to add a few more. Now you can actually see some bubbling on the surface. So I think that's going to do it for me. So you can see that it's kind of shiny. It's kind of bleeding on the edges just a little bit. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time because I do want it to bleed out on the edges. So make sure you've got your little spritzer facing the right direction. It's always a bad day when you spritz yourself in the face, which has happened. Okay. Because these colors are so different, I don't want to go too crazy. All right, I think that's going to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side and let it dry. See how that looks in a few. You can see this was one that I did earlier, but I kind of got it a little too wet here, so the colors got really muddy. So I didn't want to play with that one, but you can see now it's completely dry, and it has that watercolor look here, and here it just got too muddied there. All right, so for my next technique, this one is pretty easy. I'm going to do the watercolor paper again, and this time I'm going to actually use, this is like kind of the next step up in the easiness factor. So this time I'm actually going to use my clear block. So I'm using regular Whisper white paper, but I'm going to use my clear stamping block. And I'm using the same two colors. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm using two greens this time. I'm using my Wild Wasabi and my Garden Green. And I'm going to start with my lighter color first. And you can do as many colors as you want with this. I'm just going to do two for the sake of brevity. But we're going to go ahead and we're just going to actually color right on our block. So I'm going to go ahead and color right on the block. And then I'm going to take my Garden Green and I'm going to go ahead and start where I left off with the last color, and I'm just going to go ahead and color to the bottom. And just make sure I got the whole thing. Then I'll bring my little Whisper White cardstock in here. I'm going to take my handy dandy spritzer one more time. Let me slide the paper out of the way. And this time, again, I'm going to go kind of high up with this, watching which direction I'm at. I'm going to just spritz the block that has the marker on it to re-moisten it. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the block like a stamp. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that right on my Whisper White cardstock. Because you want to make sure it makes full contact to the paper, you're going to make sure you're pressing hard, giving a little oomph to that. Then you lift and you get that kind of blocked image. And then you can use that as your background. So I'll show you, here's the card I created with the one I did earlier. And the background on the one I just did came out much better. But you can see back here is the garden green and there is the wild wasabi. So the two different colors. And you could blend with another third color that's maybe not as dark. But then you can see that's my finished card. So I used that as a background. I really love to stamp the like a dark, like a black image on it. I think that looks really nice. I'll show you another one I did using that same technique. Actually, you know what? No, I didn't. I'll show you that with the next one because it's the same technique as the one I'm going to show you now. So the final one that I wanted to show you today for watercolor wash is to actually use your aqua painter. Again, I'm back to the watercolor paper, but you're using the aqua painter and an ink pad. And I'm going to squeeze the cover of this ink pad so it touches the lid of the ink pad. And then when you open this, you've got ink in your cover. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that here, and I'm going to use my my aqua painter. So this is actually filled with water itself inside, and you've got a brush tip here. And then all you're really going to do is you're literally going to wash it onto your paper. So I'm going to pick up some of the color here, and the more you squeeze, the more water you get, and the lighter your color is going to be. I usually kind of dip it off a little bit, add a little bit of water because it seems like it's a little dry. So I'm just going to squeeze the barrel a little bit, and then you're going to go ahead and just wash it over the cardstock. And then you can go back for more and just keep washing over until you get the desired look you want. So here I am I'm going to add in a little more of the darker color. And I'm going to go all the way down here and then kind of go back up because I want it to be a little bit darker. And then again, I still like to kind of do some dark, bold images on these. So I'll show you what I did with this one. So I'll set that aside. So that will have to dry before you can stamp on it. I don't know if you, so you can see the reflection of the light in there. That's still super wet. So we're going to set that aside. This one had all dried, and so I did a little thank you card. So it's got the watercolor wash in the background, and then I stamped nice dark, I like to do like silhouetted images. So like the black flowers or some sort of stark black contrast kind of image on these. So that was that one, and then I was going to show you the other one that I did a while back, and this one, it's the same idea, but I used two different colors on this one. So, but I used the aqua painter, painted on the one color, and then I switched to a different color, and again I used the nice stark black image with the greeting, the sympathy greeting on this one to finish off the card. So that's it. That's your watercolor wash. Here's the one we blended earlier. It's getting dry, so this will be a fun one to play with. You can see the colors merged a little bit in here, but it didn't get too muddy. It's still pretty consistent with the coloring I wanted it to, but it's got a much more watercolor look to it. So hopefully that inspired you to pull out some aqua painters and your inks and maybe some markers and spritz away. It's a lot of fun. So thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Teach Me Tuesday. Have a great week. Bye.